What's up, and welcome back to Nostalgia Pod, giving you another week of what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined, as always, by my trusty co-host Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, last normal pod of the year. How you feeling?
Feeling well, Peter. Feeling well. We made it.
uh, it's nice to be ending the year with some big stuff, some quality stuff, um, and some not so quality stuff that we'll be talking about actually today as well. But yeah, Spider-Man, the headliner for today, and a lot to talk
Sheesh.
about. I'm sure we're gonna go long on that. So if you want to hear all of our thoughts as well as our thoughts on everything else that we've talked about today or throughout the year, hit that subscribe button if you're watching on youtube.com/nostalgiapod, as well as go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod and follow us any way you want to there. And if you're on Spotify, and that's the way that you choose to listen, give us a rating. New feature on Spotify. And we appreciate all the support. But Dave, we're starting in a very familiar place today, which is Tierra Whack for the third week in a row, dropping a short 3-song project. I'm not even sure how to really label it at this point, but
I mean, they're definitely EPs.
Okay, so a
3-track
3-song
EPs.
EP.
The third one, though. Yes.
She's going R&B on her ass. What'd you think?
Yeah. And by the way, Tierra Whack said to Zane Lowe that this is Whack History Month. Finally, labeling what she's been doing these past 3 weeks. Technically, she has another opportunity to release a fourth EP. Maybe it'll be called EDM ? I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was kind of similar to last week, honestly, with Pop ? Wasn't wowed, but kind of kept the same thoughts I had going, that Tierra Whack is a multifaceted artist and she can do a lot of different things, and it's cool to see her float on different kinds of production and showcase that talent. So yeah, in a sense, it's more of the same, but it's always interesting to hear anything from her, as we've been saying.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this sounds great. I really enjoyed the first track, Heaven, a lot. I feel like like you said, she really just floats over that and just feels very vibey. Kind of going for that R&B, more melodic sound, which I think she does pretty well in these 3 songs. So an interesting thing that I found in listening to this, I just put it on Spotify, played the 3, and it just rolled over into the first track of Pop from last week. And it, like, the transition from Sorry to Body of Water was like perfect. I almost didn't even realize that the song had changed, and that made me feel like maybe there's something more connective here in the long run. So
You're onto it.
I'm hoping Spotify fumbled the surprise there for me. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying seeing her trying stuff and putting stuff out. We've wanted her to be making music, and she's given us music, so I'll keep taking it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like I don't have a whole lot more to add. It's
Yeah,
it's 9 tracks now, or 9 tracks now. Pretty cool.
Tierra Whack continues to be good. Dave, going into this week, you really wanted to talk about this Roddy Ricch project, and I think, of course, Roddy Ricch dropping one of the most popular songs of the last couple of years with The Box, and just a rising star in the rap world. Just want to say real quick, The Box has over 1,380,000,000 spins on Spotify.
Yeah,
just insane.
number one
The guy
for
does
11
numbers.
weeks in 2020. Big track, which minted Roddy as a star right away. That was his first album, but yeah, he became a commercial force off that, as you can imagine. Won a Grammy with Racks in the Middle, the Nipsey song, and yeah, just kind of arrived on the scene, December 2019 till now. So it's only been 2 years really since that album came out, and obviously The Box went so long in 2020 that it hasn't really been that long for the next, Roddy project. And here we have it with Live Life Fast, album 2. Not something I was really anticipating or really thinking about, I guess, because it hadn't been that long. He only announced it a few weeks ago, but here it is.
before we jump into Live Life Fast, going back to please excuse me for being antisocial, just give me your quick TLDR review.
Yeah, I'd say it was just a distillation of what Roddy had been doing on those mixtapes, the early hits like Die Young, where he has a real knack for making melodic hip hop that's really popular and in vogue these days. And obviously, something like The Box, which just has a really catchy earworm, nature to it, stands out. But there were other songs I liked on that too, like War Baby. His use of background choir really stood out to me, and some of his slower songs, like uh, forget the names, but there's some of those slower songs also kind of became hits for him, much more like almost R&B in a sense, and you could tell that he had more emotional lyrics he could get into. It wasn't like he was just trapping or anything. High fashion, that's what I'm thinking of for the slower tracks, and yeah, just a talented guy. And I thought the album was pretty good, and overall just a good showcase of Roddy's abilities, while also obviously catapulting him right away.
So now we have Live Life Fast. Um, if you're listening to this, this is your first time listening for like any sort of critical opinion. You may be coming in thinking this guy's a star. He's a rising star. He's probably just going to continue building on that. Do you feel like he did that on Live Life Fast?
No, I'd say Roddy was thinking outside the box with this one. Emphasis on the eater from the box. Sophomore slump, man. I didn't hear too much I liked on this, which is unfortunate, just because he has a ability to make a hit, but I didn't hear any hits.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan going in, and I'm going to say I don't dislike him actively. I just was not a big listener. I think I knew some of the hits, the box, high fashion was one that I went back and listened to. I was like, oh, I remember this one from the please excuse me for being antisocial.
Right.
Listening through this the first time, I was just kind of struck by like I didn't really find the lyrics on this to be that good, almost like cringy at times, and I didn't I didn't feel like anything. Uh, the couple times I jumped around after listening the first time, nothing really popped for me, and it just I was wondering like what happened here. Like it just feels so confusing. It feels like a real step back for him.
Yeah, it does. And yeah, I agree with the lyrics. A song like "Man Made" stood out to me for its lyrics, where misogynistic lyrics are what they are in hip hop. You hear them pretty frequently, but I thought it was pretty dumb how he was going about them on that song. I was just like, this is just kind of nonsense what you're saying here. And he's not a mumble rapper. He is rapping. He is putting his words together, but it just doesn't really make any sense. And lyrically, towards the end of this, he does nod to the street life being difficult in Compton, but and having like some gangs in and around his life at the time, and like I just don't think those songs or those beats like did enough to really try and have you latch on to that story. And most of the time, he's not actually telling that story at all. It's just kind of, I don't even want to call them party tracks because they're not shit I would bump. They don't like sound that great. It's just like a song like Thailand is like, yeah, this is just kind of a big nothing, lyrically for sure. And like, I mean, he's had great success with DJ Mustard, with High Fashion, and Ballin' as well. Two very different songs, but like I didn't love the beat selection on this, and like his lyrics, his performance in general, I think just kind of fades into the background. I guess the All Good flow he used, the flow he used on All Good with Future, I thought that was like his best performance, but still like not a song I loved or anything. So I just didn't hear any keepers on par with his past hits. And again, he's had a lot of hits in a short amount of time, but I just don't hear any more right now. Like this is just kind of a miss. I imagine he wants to follow this up pretty quickly because I saw kind of universal dislike for this project online over the weekend.
Yeah, you mentioned all good with Future, and while I agree, I think it sounded okay. Just tuning into some of the lyrics, going back to what you were saying about, I forgot which song you were just referring to. I apologize. Um, I I just felt like a lot of it didn't make sense, and a lot of the
Yeah.
like wordplay was just kind of childish and not really that advanced. So, um, there were a couple of tracks I thought sounded okay, but again, like I think when you're listening to Roddy Ricch, you're not listening to see for him to be like, oh, that song was solid. You're listening for a real banger, something that's
Yeah.
gonna
Something
pop.
catchy.
Yeah, and I don't think any of these songs sounded super catchy. He had a lot of features on this. We mentioned Future, 21 Savage, Kodak Black, Takeoff, Ty Dollar Sign, 5EO, Gunna doing another song with him. Jamie Foxx shows up on this. Any of those that you liked?
I thought Takeoff was pretty solid. And 21 is always memorable. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, nothing wowed me with the features either.
I know. I even found 21's verse to be maybe the first one I just like didn't like in a long time. I was like, this
Yeah,
project is not hitting for me.
really good meme. It was a bunch of garbage bags, black garbage bags together, and then a garbage bag with the color gold on top of them, and it was like 21's feature on the
Oh no.
Roddy album.
Oh jeez.
I don't know if I want to
Uh,
call it trash, but yeah, I mean, we've heard some better 21 features lately.
and we're definitely going to hear better Roddy in the future. With it being announced just a few weeks ago, maybe this is something he just like wanted to get out. It's also not a time of year
Mm.
where people are getting a lot of like attention, so maybe he just wanted to like get this out and move on to
Maybe a
something
label
bigger.
requirement had to release that second album by the end of 2021. So he said, "Fuck it, who knows."
Yeah. So we would recommend skipping this one if you're not a huge Roddy fan, but if you want to listen, go for it. Let's move on to television though. Station 11 premiering on HBO this past week, dropping 3 episodes. We're just going to be talking about the first two. Um, I've seen a lot of talk about Station 11 being a show that could hit too close to home given the times that we're
Mm.
still living in. Shout out or not shout out to the Omicron variant,
Indeed.
but um, something about this show is still really captivating
Mm.
and fun to watch. I'd say and interesting to watch. Something that you want to sit with. Um, Obviously, it's I'm going to say obviously, but people that don't know, it's based off the Emily St. John Mandel book of the same name, Station 11 from 2014, starring Mackenzie Davis, Himesh Patel,
Mm.
a couple other people that you might recognize in
Yeah,
it. But
Garcia Bernal's in there.
yes, thank you. That's the name I was looking for. Um, David, first 2 episodes under your belt. You enjoying Station 11 so far?
Yeah, I think Station 11 is really great, and be thankful that Omicron isn't the Station 11 variant, because in the world of Station 11, like 90% of the population dies from a flu pandemic. Obviously, very unfortunate timing that what was it, Paramount and HBO Max decided to make a Station 11 adaptation. This was decided before the pandemic started. They had commenced production before pausing it due to the pandemic. So just a lot of unfortunate timing. However, because you have Patrick Somerville at the helm as showrunner, there's just a lot of tact and craft with the storytelling here. Patrick Somerville, of course, Leftovers writer, goes on to make Maniac and Made for Love on HBO Max earlier this year. There's a lot of Leftovers DNA in Station 11 in a good way, where you have really compelling characters handling really tough, difficult, pseudo dystopian, not even pseudo dystopian circumstances. Yet it's still really compelling and not like sad. We'll ignore Leftover season 1, 2, and 3, right? Where, yeah, shit's not fun, but the characters are still finding a way to, you know, handle their emotions and move forward. And this is really compelling stuff for me. I think the first episode does a really good job of setting that table with this world basically on like day one of the flu taking over. And then what the show's going to do through its 10 episode run is jump back and forth non-linearly, right? Episode 2, we're, I believe, 20 years in the future. Mackenzie Davis now playing the adult character. The adult Kirsten, we had met young Kirsten episode 1. And I kind of like that framing device of where with this traveling symphony performing Shakespeare.
Group.
Yeah, around the Chicago area to various, pockets of civilization that still exist, keeping art alive and entertaining people with what once was. I find it all really compelling.
The first episode might be one of the best episodes of TV of the year. Honestly, it's just super compelling, and anytime you get that like dystopian, like there's something that's bringing civilization to its knees, and people have to respond and find shelter and safety, and people are responding in different ways. It always adds like that tension. But they did this with such tact. I think Himesh Patel gives a really great performance in that first episode as Jeevan, just trying to like hold it together while the world around him is falling apart. He's one of the few people that knows like kind of what's going on because his sister shared some inside information from the hospital she was working at.
Right.
And then you have the little girl, little Kirsten with her, or with him, I should say.
Yeah.
That he's trying to like protect from all this until he's like, the world's coming to an end. I had to lie to you, but yeah, we're fucked, like basically. And it's just super captivating seeing him go to the grocery store and the interaction with the cashier there.
You should go home.
Yeah. Or then they see that car that crashed and the guy coughing in it, and he's like, "Don't open your door." Like just the whole
the plane.
Of it. Yeah. Oh my god, the plane is an unbelievable ending to that episode. It like you said, it's really captivating stuff, and the jumping back and forth. I really love seeing and knowing that one Kirsten makes it through, but also that seeing her grow up to be Mackenzie Davis, who we stand on this pod, and I think there's a mystery element to all of this. Jumping around and trying to, I think, make sense of who is this person that just kind of shows up to the troop, and Mackenzie Davis is concerned about and attempts to murder, and then is wheeled away at the end of the second episode.
Right.
I'm really looking forward to the last 7 episodes. Obviously the first 3 dropped. We're going to be getting them weekly from here on out. Or actually, no, I think there's 2 coming out every week.
And it's going to be 3, 2, 2, 1. So the finale is its own week.
So we have another 4 weeks or so.
Yeah, early January it drops up. Considering exactly half of the 10 episodes premiere on December 30th or after, I am considering this a 2022 show for list purposes, and that's not just because I already made my top 10 list.
Which that episode will be coming out shortly, so stay tuned. The first episode was directed by Hiro Murai, Dave.
Yeah, he has a few others, I believe, coming up.
Yeah, and he also directed the third one, which is really good, but we're not going to be discussing.
You should talk about the third one. Third one's supposed to be really good.
I was able to watch the third one, and it's really just amazing to see the way it jumps around and tells the story of hold on, I'm sorry, I'm looking for her name. I believe it's Philippine Vel.
It's the author of like the Station 11 text in the story, right? Which is about the like an astronaut up in space on a space station watching the world die.
Yeah, and she's her relationship with Gail Garcia Bernal, who I think you see them quickly in the premiere for a short period of time, but how they had a relationship and kind of rose to fame based on this text, and then the relationship comes raveling apart, and then it shows her on the day of all this happening, and she's teamed up with Jonah from Veep, Timothy Simons, and they have a good rapport back and forth, but they're like doing this pitch to this Asian company, and Just kind of like the way that they approach the pitch, because it's all happening as they're aware that the world is falling apart, and she's she's grappling with the loss of Arthur, the who you see die at the very beginning of the episode, who was the person that she loved. It's just really, really captivating and well done, and it's this like in one sense it's a bottle episode of this relationship, but also I think just on a grander scale, it shows that this story is going to be ambitious and exploring all different aspects of this reckoning that society is having, and it's really, really cool stuff. So I highly recommend this show so far. I'm interested to see where it wraps up, because
Yeah,
I think there's so much to dig into. Like I said, they're looking at all these different people and their relationships and how everybody's handling things.
yeah. Across the
And
timeline.
right, and then there's this like mystery of who this person is that Mackenzie Davis is so worried about, and it feels like it could go in a lot of different directions. So definitely something I'm tuned into.
Right.
You're enjoying it a lot though, so
Oh yeah.
we'll be
I
talking
mean,
about it.
like the leftovers. Definitely interested to see just cults in post-apocalyptic settings. Always good material.
Always good material. Check out Station 11. Dave, I also want to talk about Swan Song, uh, new movie on Apple Plus. I was able to get to for today, and most notably, Mahershala Ali's newest movie, who
Yeah.
has
Must
risen
see.
to fame as one of the, if not the premier male actor in Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
Uh, this this movie was directed by Benjamin Cleary, who hasn't made a lot of things, but you might know him from a short film called Stutterer. But really, this is his first like feature length film, and basically the premise is Mahershala Ali is diagnosed with this terminal illness, and he is with working with this company who is uh, providing clones to people, that so that when they die, the clone will take their place, and the family will never know that the person died. It's a pretty interesting plot. Sometimes it can get a little, I don't want to say convoluted, but just confusing, because
Mm.
you have Mahershala Ali playing two roles: himself,
Yeah.
who is Cameron, and then Jake, who is
Clone.
the clone, or maybe it's Jack, I think. And the clone slowly, starts to work his way into being Cameron, and it explores a lot of different themes. I think obvious ones of humanity and what it means to be human, also like the ethics of having this clone take over your life and not telling your wife and child,
Ah.
is pretty interesting and something he grapples with. Aquafina plays a another person who chose to go through with this, and
Is this a comedic Aquafina performance or more like the farewell?
uh, I'd say even more serious than the farewell.
Ah.
It's
Wow.
there's very little humor in this. Uh, the feel good moments are moments where Herschel Ali and Naomi Harris, who plays his wife, and their son, are all just like having these family moments that are just really like joy filled, and there's a real chemistry between Ali and Harris, which is just I feel like they crackle on screen a lot of the time, and you really buy into the relationship, even if where you kind of pick up with them, you're not totally they're not in the best place in their marriage at this point. Um, but it's really interesting, especially there's this one point in the movie. I don't want to spoil it too much for people, but where Cameron falls ill, and they send in the clone because he's supposed to be with the family at this point, and they're trying not to give the secret away, and he's still kind of deciding if he wants to go through with it or not. And Mahershala Ali's Cameron is like feeling like something is really up, and it feels like the movie is like on like an edge where it could go in this direction, where it's like this like, is this clone actually turning bad type thing, or is this about like a person like grappling with their existence, their humanity? It's really well done. Glenn Close also has a side role in this, I should say, as the doctor who's running this cloning company.
Hmm.
She's not in it that much. What she is in, obviously, she's pretty good. I think where I didn't totally love the movie at times is, I think just like this concept, especially if you've seen Black Mirror, is super unsettling and like
Hmm.
a little bit I don't know, just hard to sit with the thought of in general. Um but you obviously come for the performers, and they all give really great performances. So it may not be like the most fun movie to watch, but if you appreciate Mahershala Ali and Amy Harris and Glenn Close and Aquafina, you're gonna go and just be totally struck by this. So I recommend it, especially if you have Apple Plus. It's probably one of the better things that they've put out this year. So this and Coda probably are like
Yeah.
the two that really stood out to me from them. So
And they have the tragedy of Macbeth from Joel Cohen with Denzel and Francis McDormand going up on Apple early January too. So keeps going. But Mahershala,
mhm.
cool to see him, even if the movie's not like a total home run, then still a pretty interesting choice for a role because he
Yeah,
always does that.
he makes great choices. If I had to compare this movie to any of his past roles, this really reminds me of the character he played in Moonlight. Just the way he plays it, it's very like
Mm.
toned back and flat, but super emotional underneath the very surface. Really well done. Dave, let's jump though to a movie that you made to that I didn't. Nightmare Alley, the Guillermo del Toro uh, newest film. Is this the first one after? No, it's not, because he did that like scary movie thing, right? Where it was like,
Huh?
wasn't he like executive director for some scary movies?
This is his
Like,
first movie since The Shape of Water.
I thought he was the EP for something. Maybe I guess like
You're
maybe
thinking of
not
Jordan
director.
Peele, who was the
Hmm.
EP for a lot of stuff.
I'm gonna look this up. I'll get back to you. But tell me
Yeah,
about Nightmare Alley.
yeah. So it's his first feature anyway since Shape of Water, which won Best Picture. Del Toro won Best Director. So obviously, all eyes on what is Del Toro going to do next. And this is honestly his most straightforward movie uh, to date. There's no supernatural element, nothing occult, nothing scary. It's really straightforward. It's about Bradley Cooper's character, Stanton Carlisle, kind of a drifter guy who catches on with a traveling carnival in the 1930s, and there he meets a lot of characters and continues his life. And this is an adaptation of a novel from 1946 that had been adapted into a film back in the 40s. So obviously not really a source material anyone knows, but kind of just a straight up adaptation. And uh, Stanton, he becomes a mentalist at the carnival. There's a lot of memorable characters, familiar faces he encounters at the carnival. Willem Dafoe kind of runs the show. He picks up the mentalist stuff from a couple, Tony Collette and David Heron. Clifton Collins is there. Ron Perlman. He meets Rooney Mara, who becomes a love interest for him there. And the first like hour or so of the film is Stan kind of coming into his own, understanding how the carnies, you know, do their grift, do their thing in terms of misleading the public into entertaining them and whatnot. And then the movie kind of flips about halfway through, where Bradley Cooper and Rooney Mara run off to Chicago. They run off to civilization basically, and decide to do like a high end mentalist show for rich people in the city. And at that point, we encounter Kate Blanchett's character, who's kind of like a psychologist who sees their set, but it's really a Cooper movie. Cooper is in basically every scene, and I think he's pretty good in this, right? Kind of having the layers behind his lifetime's backstory uh, uncovered by Blanchett, and Stan kind of gets subsumed by the grift, by the desire to be a mentalist, and his grasp on his priorities start to shift. And I'd say it's a pretty compelling film, but it's quite long. It's almost 2.5 hours long, and there's no twist coming. It's just kind of like a neo noir pseudo thriller film. But like I said, it's kind of straightforward. So it does feel a bit long. Like you're like it's a whole hour at the carnival, and then it's like an hour plus in Chicago. And I like the characters and all, but it felt just a little long in the tooth, honestly. And there wasn't quite like a whole lot there at the end. Like it's compelling enough, but like there's no like deeper theme or deeper message. I guess it's just more about how like the most evil thing is like what man can do to each other. I guess is kind of like the overarching message here. But I liked it, but it was a little long. I think it could have used some tweaking again, given that it's kind of a straightforward, simple story.
So just real quick, the movie I was thinking of was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which he was a writer and producer on. But for some reason, I just remembered that one from 2 years ago. Um, and hearing you talk about this, and I did look, the movie is 2 hours and 30-minute runtime. Um, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of space for these characters to vamp. You if you even go down the line of who's in this movie, I mean, Tim Blake Nelson is like
Yes.
buried down here. So there's a lot of performers. Did any? I mean, it sounds like Bradley Cooper stood out. Did anyone else really catch your eye on this?
Yeah, Blanchett, even with limited screen time, is just as you can imagine, just being dynamite as she is. She's pretty eye
She's
catching.
magnetic. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I'd say at the carnival, the best stuff's probably from Colette, but specifically David Straharan, who kind of teaches Stanton the mentalist ways and develops a connection with Stanton. He definitely has like the most to give. Defoe's pretty good, just kind of as uh, the manager of the carnival and what negative traits and mean spiritedness kind of accompanies that, and he kind of shows himself to Stanton over time. So I'd say Defoe and Straharan and Blanchett are probably the most memorable. I mean, heck, we even have Holt McElhenney just
Yeah, I was
kind
gonna
of
say.
being himself towards the end of the film. Nothing too much for him to do there. Um, Rooney and Kate Blanchett only share a very brief scene, so you don't really get the Carol reunion, even though
Mhm.
it's more or less period accurate. Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really a Cooper film, and everyone else is definitely just a supporting character, just kind of on the periphery.
Are you expecting a Cooper nomination here?
Nah, I would say no, just because I don't know if this movie's gonna make the impact. Obviously, it had a really poor box office going up against Spider-Man, but I mean, like all
Yeah.
adult films, the box office has been dismal this fall, with the exception being House of Gucci. So, kind of to be expected, I suppose. But I mean, yeah, Best Actor is really tight, and yeah, I don't know if this will be the one. Like Cooper's good, but I wouldn't say he's like the best he's ever been or anything in this. So solid film, but nothing nothing too amazing.
A bit of a disappointment from Del Toro, coming back and directing. I think we all were hoping to get something a little more, but not to be. Let's keep
Yeah.
moving though to Hand of God on Netflix. The Paolo Sorrentino film, which, if you've been following our podcast, that we're fans of his from the Young Pope and the New Pope. Uh, yeah, I mean, this is, I think, kind of what I was expecting in a sense from him. I mean, not necessarily like the story, but I think the visual style feels very familiar in a lot of ways. I think the humor and the way that he tells the story through building the sense of family and community, um, of just like these long scenes of people talking and being together. Um, I really enjoyed the movie. I think there's some parts that didn't totally work for me, and it feels like maybe not Sorrentino's best stuff, but this is still something that's really good. And it was nominated for the Golden Lion. It didn't win at Venice, but it did win the Grand Jury Prize and a few others. So probably a film that will get some recognition, or at least be in the conversation as we're moving forward. Did you enjoy Hand of God, Dave?
I did enjoy. I didn't love the film. I think I liked the first half of it more than the second half, but
Yeah.
it has a lot of the stuff you'd expect from him. There's a real sense of style, real clear uh, direction here, in 1980s Naples. Um, I'm not super well versed in his film work. Obviously, he did win the Best International Film Oscar earlier in the decade uh, for his home country of Italy. Which actually I found out that was the only time an Italian film was even nominated for Best International Film in the 21st century. That was the only one. They have plenty of wins in that category, but not in a long time. And obviously, they are hoping to continue that. This is the official submission for Italy, and we'll get those shortlists soon. I'm sure it's going to be on there. And yeah, I liked it. I think the kind of continuing theme of Diego Maradona kind of
Yeah.
dominating uh, the life here of everyone in Naples, young Fabietto,
Mhm.
that this kind of being like what's driving his motivations as he's doing other things we associate with a coming of age tale, right? And this is supposed to be like semi autobiographical on Sorrentino's part growing up in the 80s. But yeah, it was cool. I thought the best stuff's definitely everything with the family. I think
Yeah.
specifically the first half when everyone's like together, like that the big extended family scene when they're all like on like vacation, like down the countryside, in the water and stuff, and just the way they bust each other's balls, and everyone feels really colored in, really like finely written, even if most of those family characters, they're ancillary characters, they don't have a whole lot to do, but they all feel like real presence, and I think that's kind of the most memorable stuff. Once the movie starts to, I think, progress further along, I think I was just a little less interested in it because it got a little more like, okay, here's the beats to expect from a coming of age story. But I think it's still pretty high level, and yeah, like, again, like the writing in the first half impressed me with everything with the family.
Yeah, I agree. I think that scene where they're having that dinner and they're or that like lunch outside and they're all together and then the cousin shows up with the new boyfriend who's like
Hmm.
70 years old and has the voice thing out for his neck and
Yes.
everything with that whole scene is just really really electric and I just love them like busting each other's balls and you feel like you get like 50 or 60 years of family context all within like a 15-minute scene just
Right.
really really expertly done. um I agree. I think the second half feels a bit more meandering, but I think that actually is probably intentional as Fabietto experiences a severe loss. I guess we'll spoil if you haven't watched. Check back with this, but when Fabietto's parents both die, I think you're supposed to kind of feel this like listlessness, and you even kind of see it in some of the dialogue, like when he talks to his brother about we're not rich, what are we gonna like do with the house, like how are we going to live moving forward, and the brother's like, I just don't want to think about that, I just want to be I just want to be happy for a little while. It really kind of shows that he's like this young kid who all of a sudden has to like figure out all this adult stuff and um yeah, I mean, some of it didn't work. Like the scene with the Baronessa, I was like, this is a little drawn out, and I don't know if it feels totally like necessary to like have like the detail of it that they do. But I think if obviously if you know any of Sorrentino's work, even if you just tuned into like the young Pope or the new Pope, this is kind of the direction he goes in, is like these spiritual awakenings and like kind of always like underlying a lot of the interactions is like sexual tension and desire. Um, I really loved, like you mentioned before, the Maradona of it all. Not only like actually seeing them like watching the Hand of God game and like
Hmm.
how
Yeah.
they how
The goal
they're
of the
all
century
responding
as
to it.
well.
Yeah, but then like having that like play on it where like his parents dying seems to be a real like just freak accident and
Yeah.
him not being there seems to be this real just like lucky or like but like chancing not encounter. I thought the scene where they speed to the hospital and then Fabietto's freak out when he finds out his parents died is really, really gut wrenching and well done. I give Filippo Scotti a lot of credit. I thought he was really good. But yeah, then from there, when he's kind of with that friend or the guy he knows from the game who's also like a smuggler or whatever, and
Yep.
constantly
Cigarette
going around.
smuggler.
Yeah, just kind of like feels like it's a bit listless for a while and not as enjoyable to be around. But
Hmm.
overall, I think we both really like it. I think we'll be talking about this a bit more towards award season. Any other thoughts on it?
I like Tony Servillo as the dad. He's a pretty accomplished Italian actor. I thought yeah, I liked how Italian it felt, right? Like there's constant references to other Italian filmmakers of the time, Fellini, Zeffirelli, Capuano, who you see at the end of the film. Like they're all like present. Like it's supposed to like feel like real life in the 80s. I also felt like Naples. I've been to Naples. I
Yeah.
was there for a day. Naples is a really, I think, feels like a real place. It's not a tourist hotbed. It just felt like a real place where real Italians live, and you get a little bit more of that in like My Brilliant Friend, the HBO series. Same kind of thing, like coloring in like a real place. And yeah, I think the overall like the namesake of the film, tying Maradona with the hand of God goal to the hand of God saving his life, not dying from carbon monoxide. Like it's done in a really good way because of how the film sets up the Maradona of it all, which also makes sense because Maradona like completely like subsumed Naples when he goes there. It was like complete like infatuation with him when he finally, or when he does that famous transfer. So yeah, I'd say like overall it's maybe a little like simple like basic plot, but it's not really a movie you're watching for the plot in the first place, right? It's kind of all the other stuff going on.
Yeah, for sure. I want to shout out one scene that I thought was really well done, and that's when Fabiano goes to visit his aunt Patrizia in
Mm,
the
yes,
hospital, and they're talking, and he's kind of confessing that he's had this like longing for her or this like desire
yes.
for her, and
The movie makes a point of showing how horny he is for his aunt.
yes. But then like when he says to her like I always like when you told that story about the little monk, I always believed you, and just like the way that um Luisa Ranieri, who plays Patrizia, just like slowly like you can see how much that means to her to hear that and feel like someone's not calling her crazy or insane or telling her that she's wrong or cheating, calling her whore. It's just like such a tender human moment that I thought was really good. And then seeing the payoff of the little monk down the line, and when he's traveling by I think he's by train to see his brother for the vacation, I thought was just like a nice touch to it all. So definitely some really great human moments. I think that's what Sorrentino does best, just kind of like create these moments that feel very real and authentic. So I think this is a movie that people should check out. It's on Netflix, so you have access to it. Let's move on though, Dave, to something you have to go to the theaters to see, and a lot of people did. Uh, Spider-Man: No Way Home, the third in the uh, Home trilogy for Peter Parker, Tom Holland, and Marvel. uh, Obviously paired with Sony, and this is the second biggest opening of all time behind Endgame. Is that right?
Yeah, second biggest domestic opening weekend, 260 million, ahead of Avengers: Infinity War, ahead of Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Obviously, count the theaters up, do the inflation math. It's not quite apples to apples with any of this stuff, but yeah, it's the second biggest opening weekend for money, and third biggest global worldwide box office as well. Alongside that, I think actually even more interesting, maybe this got the rare A plus cinema score. Spider-Man: No Way Home did. Only the fourth MCU film to do this, alongside Avengers One, Endgame, and Black Panther. Uh, it makes sense that there is such a response, a reception to this, because again, the trailer was the most watched trailer of all time, right? There just was a really effective amount of hype built up for this Spider-Man film. I think, obviously, as we know, Spider-Man, the most popular Marvel character, really forever. Like it's always been this way, and the MCU has obviously helped with this. So more Spider-Man's gonna be successful, but I kind of underrated the nostalgia play of it all, with obviously connecting to other past iterations of Sony Spider-Man, which is heavily in the marketing. There's no secret about that. Like all the villains are in the trailer, in the posters, right? And seeing this kind of box office response, Omicron be damned, it definitely speaks to kind of the rare situation this level of blockbuster it was is.
Yeah, it. Uh, I have to say, I was pretty blown away by the movie. I thought it was super enjoyable, and for a movie that, similar to Nightmare Alley, is 2.5 hours long, didn't feel that long to me. I think there's definitely some points in the movie that move a little quicker than others, but uh, you mentioned how there's like that nostalgia play, right? And what we got in the trailers was the villains coming back. Alfred Molina as Doctor Octavius. You have Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, Jimmy Fox as what's his name, Electro,
Electro, yep.
and then a couple others that
Reezy
show up.
Fonz, Lizard, and Thomas Hayden Church, Sandman. One villain from all previous non-MCU Spider-Man movies.
And so, and I'm going to say spoilers from this point forward. I think when you see those villains and you also have Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse as another entry into all this, the thought is, are we going to get other Spider-Men in this movie?
Right.
And did we, Dave?
We did. We did indeed. Andrew Garfield from The Amazing Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire from the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. Heck, we even got Charlie Cox's Daredevil from Netflix.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Hell, which actually makes some sense because
Yeah.
of Kingpin on the other side of the coin. Kingpin coming into play on Disney Plus's Hawkeye recently. So this kind of opportunity to do like a multiverse thing with the Spider-Man and in a sense put like a checkmate down on quote past misgivings, past mistakes. It's kind of a masterstroke that Marvel has been setting up for a little bit, right? The multiverse concept has been probably popularized most importantly by Spider-Verse, as you say. I don't know if the MCU necessarily would have gone down this road if Spider-Verse hadn't been so well received. But post Spider-Verse, of course, you got Marvel What If, but probably even more importantly, Loki acknowledging the timeline stuff, right? So then when we get to No Way Home, Doctor Strange just kind of like laying out multiverse jargon, and it's not a problem for the audience. It's kind of a common concept now,
Yeah,
And again, it gives all this opportunity.
I loved Strange laying out the multiverse stuff because all he basically was like, yeah, we don't really know that much. That's basically like, oh, and everybody's like, okay. So basically, we know like you can like do stuff to the multiverse, but if it goes wrong, it's bad. Like that's basically what they laid out, and stuff goes wrong with it. I think we'll get to the choice to even like enter the multiverse because I want to explore that a little bit and maybe in some critiques, but it was a lot of fun, man. Like I have to say, I think the thing I liked most about this movie was getting these characters back and having them, especially obviously Doc Ock and Green Goblin, just come back and be completely revelatory to this Spider-Man world. And I think the choices to have them interact with Peter the way that they did, neither one and none of them were all totally bad the whole time. You really got to see them interacting with him on a human level a lot of the time, or not a lot of time, but for good chunks of the movie. And I think that really helped. And then once you get all of them together, once you get all the Spider-Men together, that's obviously when the movie just completely skyrockets for me. I think it's just electric, and you get some really fun performances from Garfield specifically. I didn't really love Tobey Maguire in this, but it was still nice to have him back.
Yeah. So I like both of their performances. I think Garfield was just being how he's been the past few years, which is just a really good actor. And his Peter Parker performance was always good. Just the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man movies had other misgivings. And Toby, I love how he comes in, in plain clothes, and they make fun of him for it because Toby, so much of it's so meta, right? Like, but the Tobey Maguire angle in particular, like Tobey Maguire not really acting these days.
Yeah,
he's most famous recently for being a big part of the Molly's Game expose. That's kind of what I think of Tobey Maguire the last 10 years, to be honest. But like all the lines, all the comments that those Peter Parkers make is just constant meta references to what happened with their films, both in and out of universe. I think it's all really done well because I didn't have that high expectations going in. I kind of thought this would be kind of messy and bungle a little bit. I was surprised at how high the execution was for this at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I thought it completely worked. I think some of the storytelling, there's some things you have to kind of just be like, oh, okay, I guess that's just how it is. I think Doctor Strange in this, while Cumberbatch is great as him, it just like none of his decisions make any sense to me in the movie.
Yeah, we'll get back to this with where the movie leaves us, where the movie leaves Spider-Man, but like it's kind of annoying that like Peter Parker can't just like be a New York Peter Parker. There needs to be Tony Stark or the ghost of Tony Stark or Doctor Strange also like directly interfacing with him in the movies, you know. Uh, but I think the most unrealistic thing of all was that uh, MJ, uh, Jacob
And
Batalon, and Ned and Peter were like, "Oh yeah, we'll all go to MIT together." Like, who the fuck thinks
yeah,
them and all their friends get to go to MIT? That is completely unrealistic.
yeah, I agree.
Any
But
college, you don't all get to go. That's not how it
well,
works.
especially ones that are that stature. Like if you were just going to like I don't know, like a SUNY school, like you might have a better shot of all going together.
But they're very competitive too. It's not like it's
That's true.
cakewalk to get into state school. So many applications.
Um, but so going back to like the beginning, I really like that they pick up right after no Far From Home, when J. Jonah Jameson, who's
Yeah.
basically Alex Jones in this world, just
Yes.
reveals Peter
Nice
Parker's
tweak.
identity,
Yeah.
and you just get right off the rip Tom Holland and Zendaya just swirling around New York City on spider webs and having a lot of fun right away, and uh, I think really propels the story forward right from the jump. I think you get some really interesting moments between him and Happy and Marissa Tomei's married Aunt May. Sorry, not
Yep.
Mary Jane. Also, nice to see some Succession in the beginning with
Arian
what's his name?
Moayed.
Yes,
Stewie.
just yeah, Stewie, just like as the FBI agent who's or maybe a CIA, I can't remember, but who's
Yeah.
trying to like incriminate all of them and basically put charges on these people. I thought the beginning was really fun. It started off really great.
Hmm.
I think where like you mentioned, maybe some of the stuff about like why the multiverse gets ripped open doesn't totally make sense to me. But if you can get past that like leap in logic, and this is a movie where you have multiple of the same people, I think you can forgive that. Then it really gets right back on track.
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit of a walk to be like, oh yeah, Doctor Strange, the former Sorcerer Supreme, really talented man of magic. Yeah, he fucked up the spell. That's how all this happened. He fucked up the spell because Peter was talking to him too much. Like what? That's really what caused it. That
For
that
me,
was a bit
it's
that was a bit eyebrow raising to me.
I guess we'll just do it right now. For me, it's the fact that he even like entertained it in the first place. Like
Yeah,
Doctor Strange would never, ever do this. Like he would be like, "I'm really sorry," or like "fuck off," but he would not just be like, "Yeah, you know what? We're bros. I'm just gonna do this one huge thing for you." It's like, no,
yeah,
it's not. I felt like that was just kind of like, oh yeah, Strange at one time after a party did this, and now he'll just do it for anybody. Didn't
right.
make any sense to me.
Especially because he basically like spells out the real world logic. He's like, you didn't think to call the admissions
Right.
department. You just came to me. Like that should have been the end of it.
Yeah, it should have been the end of it. But anyways, it's a superhero movie. We're gonna take some leaps in logic. Um, I thought the scene where Doc Ock shows up on the
Yeah, the
Bronx,
trailer.
is it the LIE I think they're on, or the Bronx River Parkway, one of those two?
Yeah, it's going to JFK. They said, I think.
Yeah. Just I thought that was completely electric, and Alfred Molina hasn't missed a beat.
No, he's so good.
So
Yeah.
good.
So I did a full rewatch of the first two Spider-Man films, and I kind of like did the YouTube clip playlist run for the rest. And what really stood out to me was one how well Spider-Man 1 and 2 stand up overall, and part of that is because their villains are awesome. And Molina as Doc Ock, is so strong. The writing for him is so great as well. And there's a reason Spider-Man 2 is long held up as one of, if not the greatest superhero film ever, even though it's coming up on 20 years old. Yeah, like Molina's such a part of that, and I love just seeing more of him. I loved how like further on we get some plot beats, right? Restoring the chip that short circuits back in Spider-Man 2, getting us back to like good Otto. Like you get both sides of the performance. It's really fun. And like I like how they MCU'd it in that early fight, right, where the nanotechnology takes over his arm. I think it's a really smart choice to make to like kind of like quote modernize bringing a Sony thing into the MCU. Like it felt really seamless.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I also like that basically the Green Goblin shows up and they just like cut out. And it's like, I
Mm,
think Strange pulls them back to his
yes,
underground basement or whatever it is with Octavius in the cells, and the alligator guy is just there. Like he just found him,
Lizard.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the lizard guy is just there. I guess that they didn't want to introduce him at all. But I liked that too. That was kind of like the MacGuffin of this all was like Peter has to go and like find these bad guys and like put them in these jail cells, and then I think making the conflict being, oh, if you send them back the way that they're going to,
Mm,
they're all gonna die. Basically, all these
right.
characters have died, and they all don't want to go back to
They
that.
all come to the recollection, the ones that do die in the original movies. I like how they all come to that point.
Yeah,
Uh, And yeah, I guess that still is like kind of like challenging. You have to kind of like buy into the Aunt May message of it all, where it's like Peter trying to fix all the bad guys from the other universes. It's like, all right, I guess that's your journey. Like, if you say so.
isn't that
Another thing
like
that's like it's a bit of a bit of a walk, but I liked seeing them temporarily be allies in
yeah.
Happy's apartment. Just seeing them all talk to each other, it's just good stuff.
Yeah, before we get to that, I did just want to shout out. We get another like mirror world, or oh, is that what it's called? The mirror world from
Hmm?
Doctor Strange, when they're like swinging through New York City, it's like falling on top of each other, and there's like
Another
parallels of it.
dimension, I think, is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something
it's
like
like
that.
it's in your head, is what it is.
Um, which I thought was great. But I feel like there's a line, I can't remember which movie it is, where Peter's like swinging around. He's like, I can fix this. And like, I think that's why the Aunt May thing feels like it would actually work on Peter,
Right.
is that
Yeah.
he's the type of person who's inclined to try to fix something rather than just like accept that this is the way the fate is going to go.
Yeah.
I agree. I think
He's
when,
also a kid too. Let's not forget.
yeah. And that's the other thing is I think Willem Dafoe in this is just like throwing 100 miles per hour still. Like the way he
Hmm.
transitions from Norman being so sympathetic and confused and wanting to like help him
Yeah.
to like
Unwell.
Green
Yeah.
Goblin, it's
Yeah.
so impressive. And his Green Goblin is maybe the meanest character
Yeah.
ever in these
Real
things.
dark for sure.
Super dark.
Harkens back to the meme. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
for
do
sure.
after everything I sacrificed. Again,
Yeah,
no beat was missed. I
no.
actually liked what they did with Jamie Foxx's Electro. Amazing Spider-Man 2, probably the second worst Spider-Man film, not a good film. But they did some subtle tweaks to Fox's performance as Electro, and again, it felt seamless. It all made sense. I like what they did with really everyone. I mean, even like Lizard. Lizard's not really in it too much, right? We don't get much of
Yeah.
Dr. Connors there, but it's like just enough, right? Like it's just used just right. And I love the introduction of Sandman when we meet Electro, because he comes in as an ally, because Sandman ultimately was good, at the end of Spider-Man 3. So like every I think the probably the biggest obstacle still with this film is being and there's a lot of kids grew up on the MCU at this point. Plenty of them never saw these Spider-Man films. They don't know who the fuck these people are.
Yeah.
And you might not know who the other Spider-Men are either. And yeah, you can figure it out. It's not rocket science, but there's a bit of homework, I think, to really appreciate a lot of the stuff going on in this film. Because otherwise, it's just a messy, loud blockbuster.
Yeah, I think it works on a lot of levels. And it's the type of thing where if you have all the background, you've watched all these movies, you've cared about any of the Spider-Man or the movies before, you get a lot more out of it. But I think if you're still like a 12-year-old, maybe even 15-year-old kid who hasn't totally tuned into the Tobey Maguire ones, you're still like, I get what's happening. This Green Goblin is, a pretty messed up bad guy. This Doc Ock is, good at heart, but has these bad voices in his head. Like, so you can probably still enjoy it. But yeah, I think there is like another level of enjoyment if you have that nostalgia to the other ones for sure.
Right.
Um, so now we've kind of gotten to the part which I think I was surprised at in the theater, but also at the same time, the more I thought about it, made sense. Where Marissa Tomei's Aunt May is killed in
Mm.
this huge fight as the villains all turn on Tom Holland, Spider Man. How'd you feel about that scene just in general?
No, no problem for me. I guess in a sense, something like this had to happen. Happens to all Spider-Men, right? And I like how when you get all of them talking to each other and how like, oh, you don't have the Avengers. Oh, yeah, our uncle
Yeah,
died. Like they kind of like go through the cliff notes of like their traits and how they're subtly different and stuff. I guess it makes sense that they wanted a May to be in there, and it's probably just to give the line, the "with great power comes great responsibility" line, right? Like
sure.
it didn't have to happen by any stretch, but I think it worked fine. It's not. I saw some people saying like Aunt May deserved more, but like Aunt May is always going to be Aunt May at the end of the day. I mean, she at least has a lot more lines in the MCU than she did in the traditional origin story.
Yeah. I actually was surprised at how emotional this felt to me. I definitely, when I first saw the explosion and saw like Peter kind of trying to grab the Green Goblin's grenade or like bat it
Yes.
away, that
Pumpkin bomb.
I was like, are they about to kill Aunt May? Like I was like, no way.
Mm.
And then Marissa Tomei gets up and she seems fine. And then all of a sudden she's not fine. And I was like, oh, they're gonna kill her. No. And I actually felt like it was pretty devastating. And watching Tom Holland, sit with that grief, and especially when Zendaya and Ned, so when MJ and Ned show up and give him a hug on top of the school roof, I thought that was really moving, and I was really surprised that I thought how well Tom Holland acted that out. I didn't really, from what we've seen in things like Cherry, I wasn't really expecting his acting
Right.
chops to be what I left being impressed by, but I feel I thought it was pretty good. Did you find it emotional? Did it hit for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the most heavy lifting he's had to do from a dramatic standpoint. That much is obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so then, like you mentioned, we get the scene. Ned is a sorcerer, unknowing to everybody else, is able to open portals. You knew right away that was Andrew Garfield, right?
Oh yeah. No, that was a headcanon thing, right? It's like, oh, Andrew Garfield will save Zendaya to redeem himself for losing Gwen. Yeah. Oh, I saw that shit coming. As soon as it started, I was like, ah, there it is. Yep, there we go. It's happening. But Garfield really selling it once he catches her, once they land, just completely balling out in a sense, a bit of meta commentary on how his career went with Spider
Oh,
Man, how his relationship with Emma Stone went, perhaps, who can say? But yeah, I thought that was a great moment. And I don't know if we want to get into this now, but one of several like theater moments where people exploded in my
yeah.
theater.
Well, no, that I think that was definitely like some of the villains showing up people were excited for in mine, but yeah, that moment when Ned opens up the portal and they say Peter, Peter, and uh, Andrew Garfield's Spider Man comes through the portal was the first time that everybody started to like stand up in my theater and like go wild. And then when Toby Maguire shows up, a few minutes later,
Mm,
people were just absolutely losing their shit. And I think we all kind of knew this was coming, but yeah, it was raucous in mine.
yeah. Oh, so when Garfield showed up, someone in my theater screamed Andrew Garfield. Like I didn't even hear what they said. Like but that wasn't the first moment. As soon as the movie started, when they were soaring around after Zendaya and Tom, people were loud with that. Uh, God, there's so many moments, man. Later on, when Toby tells Andrew, "You're amazing,"
Yeah.
people exploded for me with that one. When Jamie Foxx makes a allusion to Miles Morales, people got mad. Of course, when Daredevil first showed up,
Oh
that
yeah, that was a
that
good
that
one.
was electric. Um, but yeah, and so from Garfield's entrance, Garfield, so much of Garfield, the Gwen Stacy save,
Mhm.
redo, like everything with him. Honestly, people ate it up.
Yeah, well, I think he presents as just like super charming in this, and like you mentioned, they all have their different backstories, and his kind of being like, I lost Gwen, I was rageful and vengeful, and I just kind of got tied up in doing Spider-Man stuff and never living for me. I think is one that people can really like connect with and find sympathetic, and he obviously feels the most. Like there's a lot of potential there for maybe a spin-off Andrew Garfield universe Spider-Man again, which is just crazy to think about. I don't know if it would
No,
happen,
no
but
chance they're doing that.
you don't think so? I think there's a chance.
No, no
I
way.
think there's a chance.
After the way they set this movie up, at the end, I don't think they want to take away from Tom Holland. So I would say
Yeah,
no.
I think the interesting thing is how much does Tom Holland want to keep doing this? There's a
Yeah. Oh,
GQ
for sure.
interview recently where he said he
Yeah.
was pretty burnt out and kind of wants to just go live life and be in other things. He's 25, said he doesn't want to be doing Spider-Man past 30.
Yeah. And importantly, he does not have a current picture deal with Sony. Like he's free.
Yeah.
So I hope if
Feige,
they do force him to come back, that he gets basically the Robert Downey Jr. treatment. Give that
yeah,
man 50 million bills with back end, and otherwise he's not doing it again. Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, he is their most valuable actor. He is their most
100%.
important actor, not even a question. But I think they want that. They're gonna let Spider Verse, the two sequels come out, and then they're gonna do live action Miles. I don't think they have any interest in really retreading ground with Andrew Garfield, just because I don't think there's much to gain from it.
I,
Like
I
how do you top how effective No Way Home was by doing that? Like I don't understand. Like now maybe that would be a Sony thing. Sony wants to keep going with they have the Craven movie coming, or Morbius coming out very soon. There'll be a Venom 3. Maybe they want to do something and have Andrew Garfield fight the Sinister Six. I don't know, but like I don't think Marvel MCU wants to have Andrew Garfield. I don't really
yeah,
don't think so.
I didn't specify that, but I could see definitely him getting something. I think I could see it maybe being like the Pattinson Batman almost, or yeah, the Robert Pattinson Batman almost, where it's like this like one or two movie thing, especially if they do decide to go like a gritty older Spider-Man, like he's talked about this like vengeful side. Maybe there's something to explore there. But I could see him. I could see rumors at least being out there that he's going to be getting his own movies, especially on the Sony side. I agree. I don't think the Marvel side has any interest
I,
in
to be
that.
clear, Sony just wants to also have Tom Holland be in their movies. Like
Right.
this is definitely not their first choice using Garfield for things.
Um, so, anyways, we get to see them all interacting. I think like the scene at the school where they're coming up with the cures for each villain was like a really fun scene. Like you said, they're kind of talking about their backstories. Then when they go to the Statue of Liberty, them all talking, interacting was awesome. When they all land together, that was a huge theater moment for me. People
Mm.
were really like losing their shit around that. Um, and then I thought the final fight was, even though it's like Marvel big CGI fuckfest type thing. I thought there was like some real moments in there. You kind of get like the Green Goblin, Tom Holland. Like, is he gonna do Luke being bad Luke or Luke being good Luke type of moment, sort of thing, and
Yeah,
Toby Maguire getting the like dad Spider Man, like
yeah.
don't do his son type
You
thing.
saw him getting stabbed in the back coming, right? Like I thought that
Oh,
was the most obvious thing. I was like, oh, you have your back to Green Goblin. That's not going well.
yeah, 100%. That was telegraphed. You get the MJ save moment. Well, I mean, what else from that final scene like stood out to you?
Yeah, I guess it's just like seeing the Spider-Man interact, seeing like the
Mhm.
run up, right? Seeing them kind of trade. Like I mentioned, the Garfield Zendaya save. Like other than that, it's just it's just kind of them doing their thing,
Mhm.
right? Like it's nice to see more Molina because he's good being good.
Yep.
You know, uh, I guess the ending scene when they're on like was it the Shield or wherever they're standing? It's really just
Yeah.
Goblin and the Spider Man. Like that was pretty cool, I guess. But then at that point, like it's like oh the multiverse is closing in. We have to fix this, and it's like it gets kind of like existential dread all over again. I think the little moments outside the action is probably where having all the Spider-Man together is at its strongest, because you just get like witty dialogue and like tons of fan service stuff like that.
Oh, that existential dread, the thing that caused the web block for Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And they,
Good
they can
stuff.
all relate. Um, yeah, so they save all the heroes. They're sending them back, and then basically the multiverse is ripping apart, and Doctor Strange can't save them or can't stop it from happening, and the world's about to be destroyed.
Yeah.
So Peter
New
Parker
spell.
has to decide. All right, no, I want no one to know who I am anymore. Which, a big plot hole in this is that Electro never knew who Peter Parker was. That he was Spider Man, I guess I would say, but somehow he shows up in this.
Oh, is
Whatever
that
they,
right? I didn't
yeah,
know that.
they wanted. He knew who Spider Man was, but he didn't know Peter Parker was Spider Man. But
Ah,
he still somehow shows up. Whatever they wanted Jamie Foxx in the movie. That's fine. He's in the movie. He's great. Um, so then Peter sacrifices it, and no one knows who he is now. He
hmm.
did what he should have originally done, I guess, when he started the spell. Um, you get the big moment at the end, the big goodbye from Peter and Ned, Peter and MJ, and then he goes back to make them remember and chooses not to because he sees that they're happy. How do you feel about just like how the movie wrapped up in that sense?
So I actually love this for meta reasons. The multiverse is something that when you do it, you can kind of remove all stakes from your storytelling, because everything can be undone, everything can be fixed, everything can be changed. But by having Peter have to like erase his identity effectively, it gave some stakes to all this multiverse playing. And big picture wise, I think it's a really smart way to do a reset for the Spider-Man films, given Holland's future is uncertain, and they want to have future plans. We don't know what those are yet. This sets it up to, I mean, maybe you do some gritty textbook comic book originy Spider-Man in New York storytelling now. No Tony Stark, no Doctor Strange. Kind of why the Tobey Maguire first two are so great, because they're New York movies that make sense.
Yep.
I love that potential. So this kind of reset, I think, was another really smart way to and wrap this all up.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'm interested to see where they go with it at this point, but I do like that they're kind of bringing it back to no more Iron Man Spidey suit. This is him, making
Right.
this suit in his one room apartment. Kind of harkens back to like when Maguire and moves out of Franco's apartment,
Right.
Harry Osborn
Yeah.
apartment in the first one. He's in that little one. It seems like he's probably going to have to go get a job, maybe with J. Jonah Jameson, taking pictures of Spider-Man to provide to
Mm.
the show or video or something like that. So they're going back to the roots a little bit, which I think is good. And like you said, it kind of leaves a lot of possibilities open. Just calling your shot. Holland comes back, right?
I think they'll get him back. I think it's tough, because I think the most part of this reset, you don't have to bring back Zendaya now,
Mhm.
because I don't think Zendaya wants to keep playing MJ either.
MJ,
It's
yeah.
not the best role. Um, I was actually kind of thinking like maybe like they take a long time, and then eventually like a Holland Spider-Man comes back. I wouldn't be surprised to see him like, if they get this deal, maybe he messes around with some Sony stuff first, and then he doesn't come back to the MCU for a longer stretch of time, and then it's like a impactful return. I'm not sure, but he's been in 6 Marvel movies already. It's only been 5 years. It's
Yeah.
been a lot of Tom
Crazy.
Holland, so
So
uh,
just to
it's
lay
kind of
some
out in the open, right? It's really a clean slate.
just to lay a little background, Feige did say that they are working on the next step in the Spider-Man story for the Marvel
Oh,
universe.
of course they are.
Amy
Yeah.
Amy Pascal said a few weeks back that uh, the next trilogy and hinted at said Tom Holland's next
Yeah.
Spider-Man trilogy.
But then
Then
she
she kind
walked
of
that
walked
back
that back. So
because he's
we
not
don't
signed
really,
or anything.
yeah, we don't really know where things are at with this. I think they'll get him back. I do think it will be a few years before we see another Spider-Man movie in the MCU. and it'll probably be smaller scale, which would be cool. I think the Spider-Man kind of needs to learn how to be a real hero and not just someone that's reliant on the Stark tech all the time. But
Mm,
I think he's too big to not just throw the bag at and say come back and
yeah,
be with the
again, do the
MCU.
Downey treatment with that.
Yep.
When you have the first credits scene, when Venom goes back, a little bit of symbiotes left behind. But I'm very curious to see how that would be tackled because Sony's going to make a Venom 3 because the Venom movies make a lot of money with Tom Hardy. MCU doesn't want anything to do with those Venom movies. That's kind of obvious, right? But does Sony want them to do their own Venom while Sony's still doing a different Venom? Like I'm quite perplexed at like what the plan is for that. Or maybe it's truly just like something they'll just pick up one day down the line and they don't even have to necessarily acknowledge it at all for a while. Who knows? But I don't think it's as easy as MCU Venom coming up soon.
I think they just wanted to get that black suit somewhere in there. If I had
Yeah.
to guess, it's a good marketing thing. Sells a lot of toys.
Oh, and I guess for the real MCU dark heads out there, the Knight character, Black Knight character that Kit Harington plays in Eternals,
Hmm.
the guy he's connected to in the comics is also connected to the symbiotes. He's kind of like the overlord of the symbiotes back in that story. And I think this is going to tie into Thor 4 with the villain Gore the God Butcher. So maybe it's not as simple as Venom versus Spider-Man, but the symbiote perhaps comes into play in a more cosmic, comic-y sense in the
Uh,
future. So
Interesting.
something to think about.
Then the second, after credit scene is just a trailer
Yeah,
for
that's new.
the new Sam Raimi Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, coming out in
Um,
May.
how did you feel about the trailer? Are you excited?
Yeah, sure. It doesn't give too much away, which I like. You see, we get more Mordo with Chihuahua Ejiofor. I saw a brief nod of Caecilius, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Maybe he's coming back again. Who knows? Multiverse, baby. Anything's possible. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it because I actually think Doctor Strange 1 is quite underrated as far as unremarked upon
Good.
MCU films go. Visually, I think it's quite impressive. And I mean, this is basically the sequel to WandaVision as well from a plot perspective. So, and Sam Raimi doing a blockbuster again. Hopefully that bears some fruit.
And it seems like a direct bloodline to What If Episode 4. So if you haven't been watching the shows,
I haven't.
you should go watch that. You should go watch Episode 4 of What If just to kind of get
Yeah.
a little bit more before May. But Marvel, dude, it's a beast. The only thing that really brings in money other than Fast and Furious as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's a story for a different day.
uh Spider-Man No Way Home, we liked it. Definitely am looking forward to Spider-Verse too. The trailer for that has dropped and
hmm
that
End
looks
of
good.
2022.
Miles Morales live action eventually is my hope. So
Oh yeah.
that'll be
Lock,
great.
lock that in. It's
Yeah.
not close, but that's happening,
So
obviously.
good shit, man. Spider-Man is a great superhero. We're gonna end it there. Good way to end the year, I'd say. Dave, what's coming up for us on Nostalgia
Next
Pod?
week, top 10 television shows of 2021. YouTube.com/nostalgia pod. Get that. Following week, January 3rd, we are talking about so much shit coming out over the next 2 weeks. The end of Insecure, the final season, the end of Hawkeye on Disney Plus, the start of the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus, as well as all these movies: Matrix 4, The Lost Daughter, Don't Look Up, Being the Ricardos, maybe Red Rocket. I might go see Tragedy of Macbeth. Who knows? There's a lot of shit coming out. So stay the fuck tuned.
We'll see you in 2022. Peace out.